Let's get ready for our next speaker. For this one, I'd like to bring on Denisse from Divvy to tell you about funding continuous development. So please give Denisse a big round of applause.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. That's me. I'm Denisse. I am co-founder of Divvy. I also work at Valora. And I've been working in Web3 since 2016, always focused on how to bring more people on-chain, how to drive user adoption. And it's really hard. Probably not a newsflash there. Driving new users, onboarding new users is hard. I looked at it through the lens of driving adoptions with incentives, with product, directly to users for a long time. And I'm very excited to be here on stage today to tell you about what all this, like tackling this problem for over a year has done and what it's resulted in, which is Divvy. All right, here we go. It's hard not to look at these screens, they're so large. Okay, so I'm here to talk about funding continuous impact and not instant hype, or funding continuous hype. So the longevity and sustainability of impact, and so really looking at how we can drive user adoption, builder adoption, and just ecosystem growth in a different and new way. Before I move on, I would love to know who's all here in the audience. There's a lot of familiar faces, but there's also a lot of new faces for me. So give me a show of hands if you're a builder. Great. And give me a show of hands if you've deployed to testnet ever. What about mainnet deployments? All right. And final question, who has ever received any type of funding? A grant, a bounty, hackathon? Awesome. Okay, so there's a couple of you that know what I'll be talking about and maybe sharing some of the pain points. All right, so where I want to start is looking at funding. How come we have spent as a community nearly $2 billion in ecosystem growth funding, grants, bounties, all these things, and still adoption remains extremely low? The data points here are from a recent crypto report that they launched in October, where they found, or they estimated, that there's about 5 to 10% of all crypto owners, they call them, so anybody that owns crypto, that are actually active in Web3. So that's 5 to 10%, a very, very small amount of people. So $2 billion deployed in ecosystem growth capital, allocated to end user incentives, builder growth, and yet this is the tiny little slice that we have to show for it. So what's the reason? Why is the impact so low? And that is our hypothesis, and our take on this is that is because grants do not reward long-term impact. You can see here on the left, another data point. Obviously, we're all on crypto Twitter a lot today, so might as well use the research that we do every day. So why does crypto, as an industry, keep sinking copious amounts of money into hackathons that lead to no retention for builders? Experimentation is, they're all in for experimentation, but they need long-term oriented builder support and funding programs. At the same time, we know that there are many teams spending, many projects and many protocols spending lots of money on very short-term focused initiatives that drive very, very poor retention. So here you see that, I don't know, of the 80 devs that participate in some hackathon, there's only 2 that are still active in the ecosystem. So all this money is being put out there to try to grow the Web3 pie, right? Like have more builders, that drive more usage, but yet they're not deployed in a very smart way. So what we see is that grants instead are actually quite political. They're subjective and they are very resource intensive for everybody involved. So foundations, they have huge teams that allocate these funds and these monies to grants programs. They organize a lot of events. They do a lot of developer evangelism and all the activities we're very familiar with. However, they lead to very low impact. For the builder side, we see here, this is someone who is a friend in SF who won, I think, a hackathon bounty or some sort of grant program. And it was so much work for them to complete all the steps to get about $250 of funding. And that is time that this person, this builder, didn't spend on building, right? So the money deployed this way with this very outdated off-chain methods are actually preventing the thing that they're actually trying to incentivize, which is more building and more on-chain impact, because builders are distracted trying to complete KYC. So, hot take, maybe not so hot, Web3 growth is stifled by a broken incentive system. Lots of money deployed. Builders do not have very good expectations of what they can rely on from a sustainability point of view, of what funding is available to them at what point. They have to take all the risk up front, just go build, ship, drive impact, apply for retro funding, apply for a grant funding. That application goes through a committee, and that committee of people will decide whether to allocate some support, some funding or not. If they do, then probably that project can move forward. If they don't receive funding, then they kind of have to go on to the next thing. And so here is where Divvy is at its pragma. After a whole year of thinking, how can we drive user growth more sustainably, we came up with this new idea for Divvy to be the first on-chain protocol that lets ecosystems pay builders only when they drive real impact that is measurable on-chain. And so there's no grants and no guesswork. So yes, builders are building, they're spending the time building, they're spending their time driving on-chain value, and they get rewarded permissionlessly for that value. It's a little bit like sharing in the pie that they help grow. Envision ecosystems, protocols, layer ones, layer twos, thinking of builders as the growth engine for ecosystems and rewarding them for the value that they bring to those ecosystems in a permissionless way, in a way that is sustainable and guaranteed and very predictable, so that builders can actually focus on building, finding product market fit, so experimenting, iterating, and driving on-chain impact and sustainable businesses for themselves. All right, so how does Divvy do that? So again, this is all about rewarding contributions that are on-chain and measurable. So first we have protocols. You can think of them as layer ones, layer twos. We also have DeFi protocols that are engaged with Divvy. They integrate Divvy, and by doing that, they want to unlock new end-user growth channels that are delivered through the builders that they help by incentivizing them. So they incentivize builders to generate incremental value for the protocols. The builders, with these incentives that are impact-based incentives, they can focus on building user experiences, and they can focus on finding that product market fit that is going to help onboard the next many people to Web3, and they get a share of the value that they help create on-chain as they do that. And finally, users. Users, as a result, have a whole rainbow of user experiences, products, and solutions, because builders are being rewarded for experimenting and for driving those people to bring new value on-chain. And so there will be a wallet for every country, different products for different user segments. We can really think of it as really a universe of Web3 user experiences, and not just the one or two that are successful today. So Divvy wants to be smarter about how incentives and funding is deployed. It wants to be transparent, so everything is on-chain. I'll go into that in a minute. Permissionless and outcome-based. So how does it work? Let's start with the protocols. The protocols define the on-chain metric that they want to incentivize. What do they care about? A lot of layer ones, well, all layer ones, the number one revenue model is gas fees, so they probably want to incentivize transaction volume. DeFi protocols, they want to incentivize TVL, deposited through their protocols. And so they pick the one on-chain metric and they define it really well. Obviously, we don't want farming and all those malicious activities. And then they fund a rewards contract that rewards builders who are having an impact on that metric, so that are really delivering value towards that metric. The builders, they integrate Divvy with 10 lines of code. They get an on-chain refer ID, Divvy a refer ID that allows for attribution to happen completely on-chain. And then they onboard users to their product, and all of those users and the value that those users bring on-chain and to those protocols is completely attributable on-chain. And then users, they're transacting on these products that the builders built, and their on-chain activity is also completely attributable to that builder. And as all of that is measured and attributable on-chain, that means that protocols can pay for that impact that they see happen on-chain. And so rewards are flowing through the Divvy smart contracts to builders based on the impact. There's, again, no grants, no applications. You don't need to know the right people at the foundations of the chains you're deploying on. You just build, drive impact, and get rewarded for it. Okay, so why do growth teams, ecosystem growth teams, like this? So they don't have to have teams to manage this, or whole teams. They have to decide, okay, what are the things that I want to incentivize, the metric, the on-chain metric, and what capital do I want to deploy at different instances? So kind of a little bit of the orchestration or the strategy behind how they see their ecosystem growing in the next X months. It's very scalable, so they can experiment. Divvy contracts have what is called a time lock, and so you can think of them as campaign. They can start by experimenting with a 3-month campaign based on the results on that on-chain metric. They can run a next campaign or just duplicate the campaign or extend the campaign. The protocols retain full control, so if the impact is not happening on-chain by the end of this campaign, the protocols regain, withdraw all the funds and can repurpose them for another experiment later on. And it's very high ROI capital deployment because the cost of running this is nearly zero. It's very, very low. For builders, it's a lot of transparency. It's very clear to builders what their path to revenue is. They know if they're able to drive value on-chain as defined by the protocols that they are building with, that they will see revenue come from that impact and from the things that they're building. No grants politics. You don't have to be a wonderful grants writer. Myself, as a non-native English speaker, as you can tell, writing is really hard. And so if you're doing that to make sure you have funding for your project, that's really, really stressful. So you don't have to worry about the politics. You don't need to know the right people. You know, not to be a great writer. It's very transparent, so everything is attributed and measured on-chain. So builders and protocols, everybody sees what's happening. It's all on-chain value creation. And so it's very, very transparent. And then it's long-term commitments. It's supportive of builders who are in it for the long term, who are willing and wanting to build, iterate, experiment, talk to users, build the solutions that are going to drive users on-chain and so value on-chain. And so it's building for the long run. Okay, a little bit of where we've seen this work already. So we've seen that value flow is evolving as Web3 is maturing. We see that there's a lot of value-centric, maybe this is a little bit ambitious, by the way, but we've seen a couple of examples of these trends where there's value-centric growth rather than just trying to grow vanity metrics. They actually, like protocols and builders, want to grow value. On-chain attribution is something that is not completely new. Other protocols are doing it. So we see Liquidity here and Beefy. They're both like medium-sized DeFi protocols in the space. And they share revenue with the builders. So if you have a dApp, a front end that integrates the Beefy protocol, Beefy will share a part of their harvest fees, which is their revenue from the value that your users are bringing to Beefy. And Liquidity does something similar. So these models work. These protocols are self-sustaining. There's a lot of builders, a lot of products that build with them and perceive revenue from they get a slice of the pie that they help grow. So if you are a protocol looking to get started with impact-based funding, this is how you go about it. And if you're a builder, this is how we expect them to go about it so that you know and it stays really transparent. So the protocols define the outcomes that they care about. They define the on-chain metric that they want to incentivize. They implement an impact reward function. So how will rewards be calculated when a builder drives that impact metric that they defined? They create a smart contract, that Divvy smart contract with all these parameters. They fund it with tokens of their choice, whichever tokens they want to pay out rewards in, and a time lock. So that's the campaign duration. It can be 3 months. It could be 2 years. It can whatever. It does have to have a duration, but whatever the protocol, depending on what the protocol is trying to define as growth in that moment. They launch, so they begin builder outreach, they co-market with Divvy and other ecosystem partners, trying to attract and onboard builders to build on their chains, on their protocols, and with Divvy. The builders, they integrate these 10 lines of codes, and then things just grow. So builders build, on-chain value grows because of their users that they bring, and Divvy is tracking all that impact, and the smart contract is dispersing incentives based on that impact and that revenue function that the protocols have defined. So there's no applications, no grants, no paperwork. So this is very new. So if you'd like to become a founding member of the Divvy community, like some of the ones you've seen here, these are some of like the layer 1s, layer 2s, and DeFi protocols. There's more that have joined the Divvy community and are creating their first impact contracts or impact reward contracts. So if you're a backend, you want to deploy capital more efficiently, you just pay for actual impact. Talk to me after this talk. I'm happy to walk you through it. And if you're a front-end builder, we have a builder camp that is currently ongoing. You integrate those 10 lines of code. We're very flexible with the backends that we support because we're really early on. And so you'll be able to see through that impact rewards function what your expected revenue and rewards will be based on the impact that you drive on-chain. All right, so with that, I think we're ready for our next evolution, and that is funding outcomes and not hype. So let's fund builders to build. Let's have protocols pay for that impact, and let's bring users that bring value and stay on chain. And that's how we can grow the Web3 pie from all sides. Thank you.